My dear garden-loving friends, if seed costs and replanting wear you down, here's the secret. There's a perennial tuber that just won't quit. Early explorers ate it. Native communities relied on it for generations, even through hard times. And you can plant it once and let it handle itself. Don't worry, we'll keep it practical. I'll show you the small space setup that prevents spreading, the gentle harvest technique for sore knees, and the cooking method that eases gas for folks new to its inulin. By the end, you'll have a low-maintenance, high-reward sanctuary. Now let's talk about that seed bill that never seems to shrink. Let's name the real strain in the before picture, the seed bill that never ends, and the work that follows it. Hello there, my dear garden-loving friends. Have you noticed how the seed bill creeps up a few dollars every spring while our knees and backs pay the interest all season long? We tell ourselves it's just part of gardening, but the cycle keeps tugging at our wallets and our energy, year after year. Here's the rhythm most of us know by heart. We buy packets, we turn beds, we start trays under lights or rush to sow before the rain. We gamble on the last frost date, and we hold our breath for germination. Then comes thinning, watering, staking, and more watering. By midsummer, every hose drag and crouch has a cost, and in fall, we start the mental math again. What to reorder? What to redo? What our bodies can actually handle. That pace made sense when we were younger, and our joints didn't argue back. These days, a half hour of careful work feels good, but hauling soil and big weekend marathons leave a mark. We end the day proud, but stiff. We sleep well, but we wake up feeling each bend and twist. And somehow, the garden still wants more. What's hard is the risk. One heat wave rolls in before the roots are deep. One surprise frost nips tender growth. A stretch of wind leaves young seedlings leaning and torn. We did the prep. We paid for seed and compost. We showed up. It still slips through our fingers. That doesn't feel fair. An annual bed can be a lot like renting. You send a check every month and you get to live there, but when the lease ends, you start from zero again. No equity, no long-term cushion. Every spring is a fresh deposit. Every fall, the value resets. The space is yours for a season, not for the long haul. Now I love the light work that keeps us limber. A bit of pruning, a short walk with the watering can. Steady, gentle tasks give us movement without strain, but the heavy seasonal push that annuals demand, tight sowing windows, repeated replanting and hauling adds up. Our bodies prefer calm, regular care. Small steps, easy tools, predictable motion. That's where we keep mobility and mood steady without paying for it at night. Raised beds do help. They bring the soil up, keep paths tidy, and save a lot of kneeling. But even with a beautiful waist-high bed, annual sowing still asks for careful placement. Thinning at the right time, and replanting when gaps show. Timing stays tight. If you miss a window by a week, yields suffer. If weather turns on you, those neat rows smile for a moment, then stall. So what if some of our food didn't need that yearly entrance fee? What if a part of the garden could clock in and out on its own, using what it stored last year to feed us this year? We're talking about plants that handle their business quietly beneath the mulch, roots that bank energy, crowns that wake on schedule without your reminder note on the fridge. Think of it as owning instead of renting. You invest once. You set the bones of the bed, you mulch, then you step back. Year after year, it pays you back, not with promises, with actual meals. The value grows while you take your morning tea and listen to the birds. Here's the real magic. There is a staple crop, yes, a real one, that shrugs at poor soil, tolerates dry spells, and doesn't beg for fertilizer. It doesn't ask you to hover. It doesn't send you to the garden center every spring with a list and a sigh. You plant. You let it run its quiet cycle. You harvest when you're ready, and you don't replant. Before we name it, let's sit with the gift wrapped inside this idea. A once-and-done bed means fewer heavy days and more easy days. More time for chatting with neighbors over the fence. More time for a gentle stretch instead of a shovel. Less money spent on packets and more saved for the fun bits. A new trowel with a soft handle. A comfy stool. Maybe a little trellis that makes you smile. For golden seniors living, that's the sweet spot. Low strain. Predictable care. Food that shows up without drama. Function meets beauty in the most delightful way when a plant thrives on neglect and still fills the basket. We don't have to give up our favorite annuals. We can keep the tomatoes and the basil we love, but we can anchor the garden with a base that doesn't drain us. A base that steadies the budget and the body. That's the change that brings pure tranquility to the growing season. A once-and-done staple exists, my friends. It's real, it's resilient, and it has quietly fed people longer than any catalog has been printing prices. And when we switch from renting to owning our harvest, the season feels different. Less hustle, more calm. So let's step into what comes next for us. After a garden that refills itself. What would it feel like to harvest for decades without buying another seed? My dear garden-loving friends, I want you to feel the shift right away. A garden that refills itself while you stretch your back, take a breath, and enjoy the breeze. Spring arrives and the beds wake up on their own. No frenzied seed orders, no trays under lights. Crowns rise on schedule because they save their own energy underground. You top up the mulch. You sip your tea, the work is steady and light, and your hands stay clean longer than they used to. Now, I hear the question, sounds too good to be be true. Perennial food sounds rare, and the ones we hear about don't usually carry a meal. But here's the secret. Some plants bank energy like a savings account. They store it in their roots and come back strong each year without coaxing. No fussy timing, no annual reset. This tuber is one of those quiet workers. It builds weight below the surface and returns on its own, even when the soil looks tired. It handles dry spells without a tantrum. It keeps growing when other crops sulk. You don't chase it with a fertilizer schedule. You don't redesign the bed every spring. It just keeps going, and it doesn't nibble at your pantry. It offers substantial yields, real food you can put on a plate. A single clump in lean soil can still set you up with enough for side dishes and soups over many weeks, with room to share. That's the kind of reliability our knees and budgets appreciate. Let's set a grounded scene. One small patch near the back fence. Not flashy, just a neat rectangle with a thick layer of mulch. You pull a few tubers for a roast one night. Next week, you gather a basket for a creamy soup that pairs with greens. A few days later, you slice them thin for a crisp salad, bright with lemon. The bed doesn't look empty. It settles, then refills from the roots you left behind. Worried it will drink you dry or eat up fertilizer money? It won't. It takes little input once established. A start-of-season mulch blanket, a drink during a long drought. That's about it. It stands up to lean soil like an old friend who brings their own lunch. So why don't we see it on every corner if it's this good? Hold that thought. First, I want you to feel how a season changes with a plant like this. You walk out after a cool night. The foliage is steady and strong. You take what you need, not what the seed packet told you to take. You harvest on your rhythm. The plant stays calm. Your back stays calm too. This is not a garden dream. It's a real after state. The tuber exists. It has fed people through hard times when other crops failed. It persisted in rough fields and still delivered meals. That history tells us something simple. Dependable food does not have to be delicate. Another gift sits inside its growth habit. It regenerates from small bits of root and keeps the patch going. That means your harvest doubles as you're replanting. No trips to the store. No "I forgot to order" moment. The factory keeps running while you plan dinner. Think about how that reduces stress. No race against a sowing window. No sizing up the weather like a gambler. You miss a week? No punishment. You harvest next week. The plant waits. That's peace we can feel in our shoulders. And for Golden Seniors Living, this is where function meets beauty in the most delightful way. We get a living pantry that takes care of itself. We get a routine that favors short, gentle sessions. We get food that doesn't scold us for skipping a day. There's one more layer I love. When a crop thrives in poor soil and drought, it widens the circle. Folks with tough yards, thin budgets, or tight time can still grow a staple. That's community resilience on a shoestring budget. Quiet, steady, kind. Now about that question. If it's so forgiving, why isn't it everywhere? In large fields, buyers ask for uniform shapes and long storage. They want crops that fit machines in standard boxes. Home gardeners want ease, flavor, and a friendly habit. Those are different goals. That gap leaves good food hiding in plain sight, waiting for people like us to see its value. Our afterstate is not fantasy. The self-refilling patch is a proven path that has carried families through lean seasons. Next, let's meet the hardy, forgiving tuber behind this shift and give our quiet hero a proper introduction. Let's put a clear name to that strength and talk about how it serves us day after day. Bridge. Meet the sunchoke, the hidden staple. My dear garden-loving friends, let's name our quiet hero and give it a fair look. Helianthus tuberosus, also called sunchoke, Jerusalem artichoke, or topinambour, belongs to the sunflower family. Tall stems, cheerful yellow blooms, and beneath the mulch, knobby roots that carry meals for months with almost no fuss from us. Here's the setup. It's a sunflower cousin that stores its sweetness as inulin, not starch. That one detail changes how it behaves in the garden and on the plate. The stalks can soar up like a privacy screen, while the tubers sit ready below, shaped a bit like ginger, white, gold, sometimes with a hint of purple. They wait patiently through cold snaps and bounce back when spring warms the soil. Let's trace a simple line through time. Indigenous communities grew this plant long before any ships crossed the ocean. It fit their rhythm because it spread underground and kept coming back. Early French explorers encountered it here and carried stories and tubers back to Europe. Later, in hard years of war and shortage, people leaned on it again because it could fend for itself in rough ground. Then, when post-war farming scaled up, the sunchoke lost its seat at the table. Why the fade? Industrial fields lean toward neat shapes and long storage. The sunchoke says, "I grow how I grow." The tubers twist and fork. They don't line up on a conveyor belt like obedient potatoes, and unless you handle them right, they don't sit for months in a warehouse. That mismatch nudged it into the margins, even though it kept thriving in backyards and hedgerows. Here's the real magic. Inside that knobby root is inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds good gut microbes. It's a different fuel than starch. Many of us benefit from that gentle nudge toward better digestion, but new eaters sometimes feel gassy. That quirk helped bury its reputation in modern kitchens that prefer smooth, predictable sides. Good for the gut, yes. Unfamiliar on the fork, also yes. Now one striking point that matters for us at home. This plant can produce strongly in rough conditions where tender crops sulk, and it can stand beside irrigated staples on far less pampering. In the right spot, its output can be comparable to, and sometimes exceed, traditional garden crops, without asking for constant attention. We get food even when the soil isn't perfect and the hose stays coiled. That's strength a home garden can use, especially on a shoestring budget. We should be honest about limits. The tubers look odd, knobs and curves that invite a slow rinse with a brush. If you pull a pile and toss them in a warm room, they soften too fast. Kept cool and handled in small batches though, they hold well. And here's the quiet benefit. Those odd shapes, and the fact they don't love long storage in a bin, encourage us to harvest fresh. As needed, fewer heavy digging days, more short, gentle sessions. Think of leaves as little water tanks. Big annual crops drain the tank and beg for refills. Sunchokes sip what they need and stash energy in the roots, then repay us when we pull the mulch back. That steady cycle means less chasing, more ease, and meals that arrive on our timetable. For Golden Seniors living, this is where function meets beauty in the most delightful way. We want plants that forgive a skipped day and still deliver. We want food that grows up to our waist, not chores that pull us down to the ground. A stand of sunchokes can be both a privacy screen and a pantry, a living hedge that pays rent in tubers. And I want you to hear this with confidence. The decline in supermarkets doesn't reflect a decline in value. It reflects a mismatch of goals. Factories want uniform. Home cooks want flavor, freshness, and ease. Gardeners, especially those of us protecting our knees, want a crop that doesn't fight us. On those terms, the sunchoke wins. So our hero has a name, a history, and a clear job in the once-and-done garden. We know why it slipped from the big stage, and we see why it still shines beside the fence. We accept the quirks because they serve us. Fresh harvests, light work, and a steady supply when weather turns fickle. There are two practical questions that often stop folks before they start: how to keep it from wandering, and how to enjoy the inland without discomfort. Let's take the first one gently and set up a tidy, senior-friendly home for this tough, generous plant. Here's where we give it boundaries that make life easy and keep the garden peaceful. Taming the spread. Small space, senior-friendly setup. Can we enjoy the abundance without letting it run wild? Yes, my dear garden-loving friends, and we'll do it in a way that honors our needs, our time, and our calm. Here's the secret. Sunchokes grow back from even small pieces of tuber. That's why they're dependable. It's also why they wander if we give them open ground with no borders. That regrowth is a gift when we want a steady pantry. But the same habit can creep into lawns, berry beds, or a neighbor's border if we plant without a plan. I hear the concern often. I don't want them taking over. Fair point. We can harness the power and skip the spread with a few calm, simple setups that anyone can manage on a shoestring budget. And here's the real magic. These same setups make harvesting easier and tidier because all the tubers form where your hands can reach without strain. Option 1 is the large container route. Think sturdy pots in the 20 to 25 gallon range, about knee to thigh high. Dark plastic or resin works. Food-safe barrels cut in half work too. They give roots room to build tubers, but they keep runners from sliding into other beds. Drainage holes matter. Sun chokes like moisture, not a bathtub. Contained like this, the crop stays put and the harvest stays close. No wandering. No chasing. Option 2 is a buried tub with holes drilled low on the sides and base. Sink it so the lip sits an inch above the soil. That little rise stops wayward pieces from riding on top during weeding or rain. The drilled holes let water out and air in so the roots don't stagnate. You get in-ground stability with container control. When it's time to pull a few tubers, you know exactly where they are, inside that ring. So a small hand fork and a gentle lift are all you need. Option 3 is a dedicated bed with real edging. I'm talking strong borders, not a ribbon of plastic that wobbles. Use metal edging, old pavers, or a timber frame. Sink it a few inches so runners meet a wall, not a welcome mat. Give that bed its own real estate away from raspberries, mint, and lawn. Clear lanes around it help you spot and pull any adventurous shoots early. The bonus is simple. A defined bed turns a heavy dig into a light, precise harvest along the edges where tubers collect. Let me give you a tidy layout that just works. 2 big containers, each 20 to 25 gallons, set side by side at waist height. Place them on sturdy blocks or a low bench so you don't bend to tend. One pot can be your main crop, the other your harvest now pot. Rotate light harvests between them so each pot keeps a healthy root bank for next season. That rhythm keeps the factory running and your back stays happy. Containment brings more than control. It keeps yields close and makes harvesting simple. No wide digging, no spread to chase. The tubers form in a defined space, and your hands know exactly where to find them. That order protects nearby perennials and keeps lawns clean. It also keeps your energy focused on gathering food, not repairing escape routes. A tidy boundary means a tidy harvest. Fast, gentle, and repeatable. Let's lighten the work further. Fill containers with a lightweight mix: compost, aged bark fines, and coarse perlite or sand for drain. You want a loose, airy feel so a small hand fork can slide in without force. Top with a mulch cap to hold moisture. A simple ring of stones under the pot keeps it steady and allows airflow, which helps roots and prevents rot. Loose media doesn't just grow better tubers. It lets you lift a section with 2 fingers instead of a shovel. Ergonomics matter. Raise the containers so your elbows rest near your sides when you work. That posture saves shoulders and wrists. Keep a folding stool by the pots. Use it for short tasks like topping up mulch or clipping stems. Choose a hand fork with a soft, wide handle. Your grip will thank you after a calm 10-minute session. Easy tools, short sessions, predictable motion, pure tranquility for under $20. If you prefer a dedicated bed, think of it like a sandbox with strong sides. Build a frame about 2 feet wide so you can reach the center from either side without stepping in. Lay a coarse mesh at the base to discourage deep wandering. Fill with that same loose mix. Mark the corners with stakes or small caps so you never lose track of the boundary under leaves. When harvest time comes, you can work a neat ring along the edge, lift what you need, and let the center keep building. Watering stays simple. In containers, give a deep soak when the top few inches are dry. In beds, a weekly drink during a dry stretch is plenty once the plants are established. They carry their own reserves. Fertilizer, a spring layer of compost under the mulch is enough. The plants will mine what they need and repay you with steady tubers. Here's a friendly analogy. Think of the container as a bread pan. It shapes the loaf and keeps it from spilling over the edges. You still get a full, satisfying rise, just in a form that's easy to slice. That's what we want from sunchokes: fullness, not chaos. Once you set this up, harvesting becomes gentle. No heavy digging, no trenching, a quick loosen, a lift of a small section, and you're done. The patch looks tidy at the end, and your back feels the same way. And here's the quiet bonus. Every small harvest you take this way sets up next year's growth without extra steps. Now, let's turn that into a simple method that takes food today and leaves the factory humming for tomorrow. Let's shift into the calm, precise way we gather from this plant while keeping it strong. Gentle harvest. How to take food and leave the factory running. What if harvesting actually made next year's crop stronger? My dear garden-loving friends, that's the quiet secret with sunchokes when we harvest with a light touch. We don't empty the tank. We take food and we leave the engine ready for the next run. Less strain, more return. Pure tranquility in a basket. Here's the setup so it makes sense. Late in the season, after frost has kissed the leaves, the plant shifts focus. It sends energy down and builds new tubers around the crown, the spot where stems meet soil. As cold settles in, that ring of fresh tubers thickens through winter. The top growth may brown and fall, but the pantry below is filling itself, one knob at a time, steady and sure. Traditional digging fights that design. Big shovels, deep trenches, lots of twisting and prying. That's heavy, messy, and tough on backs and shoulders. And when we carve up the bed, we break more than we need to, then spend time raking and refilling. There's a kinder way that keeps the factory humming and keeps us upright. Here's the secret. Use a hand fork, not a shovel. We're going small and precise. Start at the outer edge of the clump. Slip the tines in at an angle and wiggle to loosen a small slice of soil. Lift just that piece like lifting a corner of a pie. You'll see a cluster of tubers, big and small, linked by thin roots. Take the larger ones for the kitchen. Leave the thumb-sized tubers right where they are. Those little ones are your seed. They hold enough energy to carry the crown into spring. If one comes up by accident, tuck it back under a couple inches of soil. No ceremony, just a gentle nudge back to work. Set a calm rhythm. Harvest a ring around the plant, not the center. Think of it like cutting a donut from the outer edge. Lift a wedge, gather a handful, tuck small pieces back, and move a few inches along. When that ring is done, scatter a scoop of compost into the gaps. It's a soft refill. The crown in the middle stays intact, and the ring you loosened will heal and set next season's tubers. Keep sessions short. 10 to 15 minutes is plenty. You'll be surprised how much food you pull with almost no strain. The soil stays airy because you never stomp into the bed. Your hands learn the feel. Firm tubers, loose mix, easy lift. No fight, just a steady, gentle harvest that respects your joints. Here's why this works across the season. Sunchokes don't mature like a switched light. They ripen in waves. As days cool, the sweetening shifts and more tubers firm up. That staggered maturity means we can take fresh roots from late fall through winter and into early spring as weather allows. We're not forced into a single hard digging day. We spread the work, we spread the joy, a small tip that pays off right away. Harvest on cool days. Even better, go out in the morning after a chilly night. The tubers are firmer, crisper, and they release soil more easily. A quick rinse with a brush is enough. Less scrubbing, less mess. More time at the stove, less time at the sink. Another gentle habit. Trim dead stems to a few inches when frost has done its work. That stub marks the crown, so you always know where the center sits. It also gives your hand a guide when you loosen the ring. You stay oriented. You avoid stabbing the heart of the plant. Clear, calm, efficient. For containers, the steps are the same, just easier. Work from the rim inward. Lift a small wedge along the edge, gather what you need, and slip the small tubers back. Then tuck fresh compost into the pocket and press lightly. Containers keep everything close, so you harvest without stepping or bending deep. It's a gift on a shoestring budget. Think of the crown as the bakery and the ring you harvest as the display shelf. You take the loaves you want, you restock the shelf with a scoop of compost, and you leave the baker to keep working. The result is a steady supply without burning out the source. Function meets beauty in the most delightful way when the patch looks tidy after you're done. Soon you'll see baskets filling up, week after week, with very little fuss. That's the mini payoff in action. Harvest doubles as replanting. No seed buying needed. No calendar panic. Just a quiet loop that keeps food coming and your body at ease. We've got food in hand. The next step is simple. Let's make sure what we cook sits gently and tastes lovely. Let's turn our attention to what happens in the pot and on the plate, because that's where comfort and flavor meet. The inland secret, cooking that calms the belly. Can a simple kitchen step turn a gassy tuber into a gentle, delicious side? My dear garden-loving friends, yes. Here's the secret. We don't need fancy tools or pricey gadgets. We use calm heat, a pause to cool, and a small first serving. That's it. Ease for the belly, flavor for the table. Inulin is the key here. It's a prebiotic fiber, a kind of food your good gut microbes enjoy. That's helpful over time, but newcomers can feel gassy at first. No shame in that. It's just your system greeting a new guest. We'll make that greeting polite and quiet with a few simple steps. This reputation scared off a lot of folks. They heard stories and skipped the plant, even though it brings steady meals and grows with almost no fuss. We're going to change that with kitchen habits that respect our bodies. Nothing extreme, gentle heat, small portions, a little patience between the pot and the plate. Method 1 is slow roasting with a cool down. Scrub the tubers and trim the knobbly tips. Slice them into even chunks about the size of a walnut. Toss with olive oil, a pinch of salt, and chopped rosemary. Spread on a tray. Roast low and steady until tender, not hard and crisp. Then, here's the part many skip. Let the pan cool on the counter. Slide it into the fridge for a few hours. Many people find that the rest and reheat makes inulin feel friendlier. Reheat and serve. Method 2 is a gentle simmer, chill, and warm up. Peel if you prefer a smooth texture or leave skins for extra fiber. Cut into pieces, cover with water, add a small splash of lemon juice or vinegar, and simmer until just tender. Drain well. Let the tubers cool completely. Later, reheat in a skillet with butter and herbs, or fold into a soup. The two-step cook coaxes sweetness and, for many of us, makes the dish easier on the belly. You can also parboil before any high-heat finish. Bring a pot to a low boil with a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. Add sliced tubers for a short par cook, just until they give slightly to a fork. Drain and let them steam dry. From there, roast, sauté, or tuck into a gratin. That quick acid bath and drain sets you up for comfort. Why does this help? Gentle heat softens the fibers and pulls them toward a form that many people tolerate better. Cooling gives your gut a head start. Reheating brings the flavor back to life without undoing the benefit. It's simple, repeatable, and easy to fit into a calm kitchen rhythm. Let's put these methods into easy plates. For a rosemary roast, use the slow roast and cool method. Reheat with a drizzle of olive oil, a squeeze of lemon, and cracked pepper. The edges turn golden. The middle stays tender. It pairs well with greens and a piece of fish or chicken. For a creamy soup, do the simmer, cool, and reheat plan. Sauté onion and celery in butter. Add the pre-cooked tubers and a light broth. Simmer gently, then blend until smooth. Finish with a small swirl of cream and a pinch of nutmeg. It tastes like a mellow artichoke without the fuss of trimming leaves. For a skillet sauté, parboil slices, drain, and chill. Later, toss them in a hot pan with olive oil, smashed garlic, and a pinch of salt. Let them take on a bit of color. Finish with lemon zest and a handful of parsley. Bright, simple, and ready in minutes. Start with small servings, a half cup on day 1. See how you feel. Give your body time to learn the new food. Add a little more next time. In a week or two, most folks find their comfort level. It's a friendly, steady way to build a habit without stress. Think of it like teaching a new dance step. Slow at first, then smooth. The rhythm becomes second nature, and the dish becomes a regular guest at dinner. We honor our bodies and enjoy our harvest without worry. When we treat the tubers kindly in the pot, They return the favor on the plate. The last barrier falls. Flavor shines through. Texture stays tender. Guests ask for seconds, and we say yes with a smile. That's the kitchen piece settled. Next, we'll make a short, senior-friendly plan that takes us from idea to harvest with 3 calm steps you can start this weekend. Let's turn that comfort from the kitchen into a clear path in the garden. 3 steps to your once-and-done patch. Want a simple, senior-friendly plan you can do this weekend? My dear garden-loving friends, here's the secret. We'll use a short checklist that moves us from idea to harvest without strain, without guesswork, and without a big bill. Less bending, less risk, more food. Starting something new can feel risky, so we'll keep it small and safe. 1 container or 1 edged bed, a handful of tubers, a clear, gentle routine. You'll see progress by next season, and the system will pay you back for years without asking much in return. Step 1 is contain and plant. Choose a large container, 20 to 25 gallons, or build a narrow bed with solid edging. Think of the border like a bread pan. It shapes the roots and stops them from wandering. Set the pot on blocks so the rim sits near your waist. Drill drainage holes if needed. Fill with a loose mix. Compost for food, a little coarse sand or perlite for air, and some aged bark fines for structure. You want soil that your hand fork can slide through with ease. Tuck whole tubers 3 to 4 inches deep. Give each spot a bit of space so clumps can form, about a hand's width between pieces. Water to settle. Label the container so you always know who lives there. If you prefer an edged bed, keep it 2 feet wide so you can reach the center from the path. Use pavers or metal edging sunk a few inches so tubers meet a wall, not open ground. Lay a strip of coarse mesh at the base if you want extra peace of mind, then fill with the same loose mix. Plant at that same depth and spacing. Finish with a mulch cap to lock in moisture. Step 2 is low care. This plant thrives on neglect, so we will not overwork. Add a 2-inch mulch blanket in spring. That keeps weeds down and your soil soft. Water when the top few inches go dry during a hot spell. In a normal season, the roots take care of themselves. If stems grow tall, give them a mid-season trim to just below shoulder height. They'll thicken and your container won't tip. No fertilizer schedule. No constant feeding. A small scoop of compost mid-season is plenty. Your tools can stay simple. A soft handle hand fork, a brush for cleaning tubers, a folding stool for short tasks. Keep them in a small tote by the door, ready for a 5-minute visit. That's how we turn chores into calm touch-ups that keep the patch tidy and our joints happy. Step 3 is gentle harvest. Wait until frost nips the foliage. The tops will fade and the pantry below will be full. Work from the edge of the clump. Slip the fork in, lift a small wedge, and gather the larger tubers. Leave the thumb-sized ones in place as next year's seed. Refill the pocket with a scoop of compost and press it back. Take only what you need today. Return next week for more. The patch keeps running while you cook. Expect steady yields with minimal inputs. That's the quiet power here. We're not chasing a calendar or a fertilizer bag. We're leaning on a plant that stores its own energy and returns without coaxing. It can offer substantial harvests for real kitchens on a shoestring budget, even when the soil looks tired. Here's a budget tip to start smart. Source tubers locally. Ask a nearby gardener to share a few. Check a farmer's market late in the season and pick firm, fresh pieces. You don't need a big order. 2 or 3 tubers can start a container that feeds you for years. Keeping it modest keeps it affordable. Let's tie the payoffs to what matters. What ancient crop removes yearly seed costs? The sunchoke. How do we plant once and harvest for decades? Contain the roots, keep care low, and use that gentle harvest that leaves seed in place. What are the 3 steps to a self-sustaining system? Plant, maintain lightly, harvest leavesome. Simple, calm, reliable. As your patch settles in, you'll feel the change. No spring rush for seed packets, no big digging days, just steady, short sessions that end with a basket and a smile. Function meets beauty in the most delightful way when a plant repays you for small favors. Mulch in spring, a drink in drought, and a respectful harvest. You're set with the how-to. Now let's bring it home and speak to why this matters for our time, our budgets, and our daily peace. As we come to the end, here's the clear takeaway. My dear garden-loving friends, here's the secret. One smart perennial buys back our time, trims our costs, and feeds us for years. We trade the spring scramble for calm weeks and steady baskets. Less bending, more living. And here's the real magic that sets this apart from traditional beds. Freedom from annual seed purchases. Start a contained sunchoke patch. Keep it neat, keep it easy, and share your first harvest stories below. Hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you'll want to catch every tip we share here. If you found this helpful, like and share with a friend who needs low-maintenance gardening. Next time, we'll pair sunchokes with 2 companion perennials for a complete pantry bed.